Hello everyone, my name is Shelby and this is the series where I reveal what is inside these mystery pottery molds I found on Gumtree. Hi, welcome to mold 78. I showed you this one in the last reveal, but I gotta tell you something. I wasn't happy with it, so here is the real mold 78. I will be revealing that mold next week. I just was not quite happy with the finished result and I didn't want to show you it yet until I added one extra detail, which is gold luster. So I'm going to be doing a gold luster firing this week, but instead this was meant to be the following week's one. So we've switched them out again. I've done this before, but it's a round one. It looks like a big steering wheel. So generally that means we've got plates and dishes. But looking at this mold, I actually think it's more like a saucer for a planter. But I'm going to treat it like it's a dish regardless. I just think with the size and the depth of it, it just feels like it sits with a pot plant. And I have a feeling one of the bigger ones that's under my kiln is the matching pot that goes with it. It has no inscription. It was very dirty, but we got it all cleaned up and got a number of really amazing casts out of this. So this week I am taking a very minimal approach, but when I say minimal, I mean design-wise, not color-wise. I have seen this technique floating around on the interwebs and it's named a couple of things. I haven't really been able to get a consolidated one name for it, but I've seen it called watercolor glazing, marble glazing, pour glazing, like there's been a number of names. I feel it best, for me, I would rather call it marble glazing because that's what I'm doing. So this process is using some glaze, adding some water so that it becomes really watery and runny, so that it's all like really pourable, and then you pour the glaze on the piece, marbling it. I thought that this week's mold was perfect because it's got that big rim, big lip, so that I could pour the glaze in it without it dripping everywhere and making a big mess, and I could have a play with that marbling detail of pouring it on the plate. Now, I have never done this before, so there's a lot that could go wrong. I may have added too much water. I may be not adding enough glaze. I may be adding too much glaze. I may be over mixing it. I may be combining glazes that don't want to work together. So these were all things that I was aware of when I was doing this, but it's totally experimental and I just want to see if it will work. At the moment, it feels like I'm pouring and making a melted paddle pop on a dish, and that's so cool. I thought this is going to be epic, even if it turns out to be completely disastrous. I feel like you could just pour the glaze on the piece and just let it sit, and however it dries could be your design. But I'm doing this sort of little swishy motion because I kind of want the colors to play a lot more, and I want to see how that looks and how they interact with each other once they're fired. A lot can go wrong, like I said before, because when you add water back onto biscuit in this amount, so you've always got sort of water in your glazes, but if you add so much and I'm letting it sit, the water can sort of sink back into the bisque and it might not dry out at the right rate in the kiln, so that can cause cracking. So I am a little bit nervous about that. Otherwise, I'm just experimenting with different order of color, different splashes, different marbling. I noticed that I didn't add enough water to the yellow, so I either didn't mix it enough or I didn't add enough, because the first pour was really good, but the few other pours I had to use my finger to mix it in because it was quite dense and it didn't quite move like the other colors are, as you can see as I'm pouring them. This is all in real time too. I didn't speed up any of these videos because I just found this whole process fascinating and watching how the colors interacted. These are also very muted to what they're going to be. You saw before that I've picked an orchid, a pink color called cranberry, and a yellow color, but I've also mixed up a white opalescent glaze. I don't know why, I just wanted to see what it would look like and to almost give it like a bit of a shimmer, and I was hoping that you wouldn't really see the white in the colors, but the white would add that shimmer glaze look. I left these to dry once they had been poured because I didn't want the water, well, there was two reasons. I didn't want water going into the kiln because it means that there's a higher humidity in the kiln, but also because I forgot to sponge off the bottom and I couldn't lift them up without moving all the glazes around to sponge off the base. So I sponge off the base to remove any glaze, because you saw at the start I glazed the edges so that they are a nice glossy plain white finish and that the marbling is the hero here. So I had to wait for them to dry, but they actually dried relatively quickly and I was able to put them in maybe an hour to 2 hours after this. Maybe I could have let them dry out a bit more. They went in the kiln, but before I popped them in the kiln, I wanted to show you the muted colors, but also how this technique itself left this beautiful flat sheen on the piece. Usually when I glaze, like, you do get this sheen, but it gave it this weird glossy kind of like, I don't know, like a satin finish, which was really cool. And I'd love to achieve that in a glaze where it looked like this post firing. Anyway, that's the look there. Take note of that. I can't remember which one's which because they all look so different when they came out of the kiln. I popped them all in. I could only fit 5 in this week, but don't worry, I'm going to put the other one in, and I'm thinking I might add a little bit of gold with next week's reveal because I need things to fill up the kiln. So that's the plan for next week. I popped them in and my reaction wasn't the best because I couldn't see anything. So I was like, what? I can't really see, because the lips of the saucer were so high, you couldn't really see any of the color straight away. You could see pops of it, but as I pulled them out of the kiln, this was when I got to see what had happened overnight in the heat. The colors are just dancing. They are so fantastic, and the way the colors have popped and the results are exactly how I wanted them to be, as in they were totally unexpected, which is what I wanted. They were bleeding into one another, they were marbling, they hadn't like mixed, they had stayed their own but sort of meddled with each other. They were like talking and being friends, which I love, love, love. Anyway, here is a closer look at all of the pieces. They have such a subtlety, so much so my camera actually struggled to do the close-up shots. It kept losing focus because it wasn't sure what it was trying to focus on, which I love. I've never had a piece where it's been so sort of dreamy and smooth that the camera has struggled to focus on the piece. This one here, you can see there's 2 little markings on the rim, and this was the first cast I did, and I realized that it wasn't actually dirt in the cast, it was some other thing in the mold that I should have just chucked that one out, but I still love it. I still think it's great. This one was one that actually cracked. So I think that that was due to a little bit too much water being added to the bisque. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just adding slightly less water, or maybe pouring slightly less on it might have stopped that crack from happening. Or maybe it was already there. It's hard to know with these things sometimes. The finish of this glaze, as you can see it reflecting and the light reflecting on that, it's just bouncing off it like a dreamy glass-like finish. This experiment is a success in my books. They are playing together so lovely. I'm imagining all these different color palettes. Could you imagine sitting down at the dinner table and having a set of these and everyone having their own unique plate, but with them all sort of singing together? Oh, such a successful week for experimentation, and I really love them. I honestly think you could do so much with this. I am glad I limited myself this week because I think I could have done everything on them. What do you think of this experiment this week, and what do you think of the saucer shape? It's so delightful, right? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.